have to last for you is probably going to make the difference of your bees surviving the winter or not. So please stick to the end so you can hear that information. So when you get in your first hive, there's so much that you'll be learning, so much of it you won't even remember. It's just going to be an overload of information. So I want to try to make things a little more clear, help you understand maybe some terminologies, just getting you pointed in the right directions, making the right decisions of what type of hive to get. I know there's a lot of things out there, a lot of different variables of this, and so I want to give you what I think is the best for a beginner, right? Getting their first hive. One of the things is the Langstroth hive, right? The Langstroth hive is, I think, is what you should be getting as a new beekeeper. There's a lot of other things. I mean, you can get a top bar hive, you can get a horizontal hive, you can get some round hives, you can get high flow hives. There's a lot of different ones out there, but just a basic Langstroth hive is, I think, where you need to get started. If you find out it's something you really like to do, you want to try new things, I mean, those are always options for you later. It's not something you need to start with now. One thing about the Langstroth hives, so many people have them, so there's a lot of information out there as far as techniques and stuff that people use with Langstroths. So I think that's a good place to start. Where you go from there, that's totally up to you and what you want to do with your bee experience. I want you guys to understand that bees are not easy, right? It's a lot of hard work to keep a good, healthy hive, a productive hive. Don't think that you're just gonna be able to get these bees, put them in a hive. You're gonna be able to come out later on this summer and harvest some honey off of them. Expect there to be a lot of work involved. You need to be keeping up on top of it. You need to be doing hive inspections. You need to be seeing what's going on. One of the biggest things is veromites. You need to be watching out for veromites. You need to be taking care of your bees. I mean, this is like, in a sense, it's like having a cat or a dog. I mean, you need to be making sure they have food. You need to make sure around your area there's water. If there's no pollen coming in, you might want to think about supplementing them with some feed. So, like I said, it's like having a pet. If you don't take care of it, it will wither away and die on you. So just make sure you are committed to it. If you're not, you won't have no bees. You'll be left with an empty hive. When I first started, I mean, I had a lot of failures, and I don't want you to have those same failures. I want you to learn from my experience. I want you to have success, especially if you come into me to buy bees. I want you to have those bees go through winter for you just fine. I want them to produce some honey for you. I want you to have good experience with them. So those are the reasons why I'm making this video, to help all you newbies out. So please watch all the way through. This video is not going to contain everything I have for you. This is just the beginning. Where do I buy bees? Okay, there's a lot of places you can buy bees. When I bought bees, I bought them in a package. I went online, did a search online, and I found somebody in my state that sold bees, and they actually traveled through, and they met us at the Walmart parking lot, and that's when I got my first package of bees. And it was great. It was awesome. Learned a lot of things. Those bees survived the winter. They did not survive the next winter though. So good success the first year round, but then I had a lot of failures after that. And I blamed a lot of different things. It was all me. Since then, I had moved away from just going to websites. That's still an option for you to go do a search, find a website, someone local. For me, in this area, Craigslist works great. You usually in the spring, you'll start seeing people pop up selling some nukes. That is what you're going to want to buy. You want to buy a nuke, a nucleus hive. So a nucleus hive versus a package of bees. A package of bees is just a box, like a little screen box that's full of bees with a queen in a cage, right? So that queen doesn't even belong to those bees. They've shook them into that package, and you're going to take that package, put it in your hive, let them release the queen. Hopefully they don't kill her. Hopefully it's a good introduction. That's not what you want, right? You want to buy yourself a nuke. A nuke is a nucleus hive. It already has the queen installed with the bees. She's already been laying. Everything's good there. That's a hive that's going. That's the nucleus of the hive right there. That's what I suggest every new beekeeper get. These already have the combs drawn out. She's got places to lay eggs. There's already eggs, there's larvae, there's brood hopefully emerging already. And so it's a way better chance for you. It's a way better chance that you'll have success. Stay clear of packages, go for nukes. Look on Craigslist, look on Facebook, offer up. Look at some of these local listings. If you guys got like a nickel saver or a giant nickel or something, like, look at those things, see what's listed in there. Any local classifieds, that's where you want to start, I think, right? You want to find somebody local in your area. And I'll get to that, one of the reasons why. What breed of queen? I heard good things about Italians, Carniolas, and Russians, and Saskatraz, right? You might be, oh, I like this thing, I think it'd be good for my area. Don't worry about that. Bees adapt really well to a lot of different locations, and that is one of the reasons why you want to pick somebody in your local area. Chances are that their bees are working for them. That's why they have excess bees to sell, and you just want to go with them. Whatever they have, go with what they have. Later on, like I said, as you get more into beekeeping, if you want to try new things out, that's when you try new things. But for right now, just whatever your local beekeeper has, get those, right? Those are going to work for you. Those are going to get you probably your best chance of success in your area. What's more important than the variety of queen is how good and healthy that nuke is, right? How many, when you buy that nuke, all 5 frames full of bees, does the queen look really healthy? Is she nice, a big fat queen? When you look in there, is there a lot of eggs? Is there uniformity amongst the brood and the larvae? There's a lot of things, and some of that stuff, it might be very new to you if this is your first hive, right? And so you might not know exactly what you're looking for. There's a lot of pictures out there. I'll be trying to put some up here for you to look at what that kind of looks like, what you're kind of looking for. When should you get your bees? Okay, so the first thing is you should have already reserved your bees by now. People have already sold their nukes out or their packages out. There's usually always a few people. I'm usually one later. I don't really advertise really big, so I usually have bees always left over. So you should usually always find someone like that in your area. But I've had people drive 4 hours to pick up some bees from me. Not that I had the best bees by any means, but because they were all sold out in their areas. Make sure you get your bees reserved. If you're watching this now and it's January, February, get them reserved as soon as you can. If it's later, call around, see what's out there. You might be kind of limited on your options of what you can find in your area. But so just remember that bees get sold out pretty quick in the spring. Get your order in, get your reserve in place. That's one of the first things you need to do right away if you want bees this year. One of the important things about a healthy hive is a young queen. So make sure you talk with your beekeeper you're buying from. Make sure that is a queen from this year. So it's 2023 this year. Make sure it's a 2023 queen. Try to steer away from queens that are 2022. But like I said, if you don't already have things reserved, you might be kind of stuck with something from last year if you really want to get into bees this year. Try to get the price lowered down if it is a queen from last year, right? Don't pay the full price for last year's queen. Inside the nuke, there should be at least 2 frames of brood, hopefully a frame of honey and a frame of pollen, and an empty comb. Those are some things that you're going to want at least. You want at least 2 frames of brood. You want 5 frames of bees in there, right? But 2 of them need to have brood. And then you want some pollen and you want some honey in there, so that way they got some food, so that way you're not so reliant of what the weather is doing in your area to make sure that there's food for them at that point. So just ask them what's in there. Those are some things you're gonna be looking for. 2 frames of brood, 1 of honey, 1 of pollen, maybe an empty comb, or maybe some more honey. But all 5 frames need to be covered with bees, especially if you live in a cooler area. The more bees, the better. That helps keep the brood warm, that keeps your hive alive and keep it going. Now you have found a nuke to purchase. Now what do you need to do? You need to buy everything now. Especially if you're going to be buying unassembled boxes. Get them ordered right away. Get them coming so that way you can assemble them, get them painted, or whatever treatment you want to put on them. So that way they're ready to go when your bees come. You don't want to get your package of bees and you're still waiting for shipment from your boxes or any of your equipment. So get them ordered. As soon as you get your bees reserved, get your equipment coming. I would say even if you can't find bees just yet, go ahead and get some equipment coming. That way you're more likely next year, if you don't get the bees this year, you'll already be 1 step ahead and you can get the bees, get a nuke reserved and get them ready for the next year. When your nuke comes, it'll have 5 frames of bees. So that's a very good start for you to be able to put into your hives, having those 5 combs already. But it's going to come in a cardboard box or like a plastic type box. and they cannot stay there, especially if you already got 5 frames of bees, 2 full of brood. They're going to be wanting to outgrow that box. They're going to be already outgrowing that box, and so you need to get them into a larger hive as soon as possible. So we've established that what you want to get is a Langstroth hive. So some of the variables in that is 8 frame, 10 frame, deeps, mediums, shallows even, and which ones are you going to want, right? What's the difference between a brood box and a honey super? And so I want to be able to answer some of these questions for you. So like a brood box is basically where they are raising their young, right? Where they're going to be laying the eggs and raising their larvae. That's going to be the brood box, okay? So the brood box is usually the first bottom box, right? Now some people do 1 and 2 boxes. They're usually deeps. They do not. Now here's the thing, they don't have to be deeps, okay? So but usually brood box is on the bottom. It's usually a deep. 1 to 2 brood boxes, and then you got 8 to 10 frames. So you got to decide, do I want 8 frame boxes or 10 frame boxes? And that's where it comes into your strength, right? If you're strong and you have a good back, I think that would be good for you to get is a 10 frame box. Okay, so here's a 10 frame box, and it's a deep, right? So that's what I think you should get. If you're a younger person, you're strong, you still got a lot of energy to you, get a 10 frame box. I think they're, for your money, I think you get the most for them. So that's what I would start it with. Now I think you should get at least, okay, bare minimum of 2 boxes, right? I think you should get 3 boxes, preferably 4, right? And I'll explain why exactly, why we want that many boxes. But that's with the 10 frame, okay? So now if you say, you know what, I don't want to lift that heavy of boxes, you can go with 8 frame boxes. These are a little smaller. These will almost fit, lengthwise they won't, but widthwise they'll fit right inside of a 10 frame box. These are going to be 2 frames less. So like with honey, you're talking it's an easy 12 pounds lighter when you got a full thing of honey. So just think about that going with a an 8 frame. You'll be saving some weight if you're lifting. Now if you go with 8 frames, I would say same thing, bare minimum you at least need 2 boxes, and I would say preferably 4 boxes in the 8 frames. The reason why I say at least 2 boxes as a bare minimum, as the hive grows, it needs room to expand. If it has no room to expand, your hive will swarm out on you. If there's no room, they will leave. So you want to be able to have at least that second box to provide them room. Now, depending on your location, you might live in a place where there's good nectar flows, good pollen coming in. And if that's the case, your hives can grow pretty good and pretty fast. And if there's honey they can collect, those 2 boxes might not be enough. That's why I say preferably get 3, and even better to get 4, right? If you have a few extra boxes, that's not going to hurt anything. You don't have to put them on if you're not using them, but you always have them if you need them. Let's say you have your hive is starting to swarm on you, you didn't catch it in time, you didn't add another box or something. You can take that and use those for your second hive to start up. So it's always good to have extra boxes. If you are short boxes, that can cause trouble for you, especially depending where you live. You might not have anywhere where you can go buy another box, or like where I live, there's a store that does sell 10 frame boxes with frames in them, very expensive, but all they have is 10 frames. So if you got 8 frames, it's not really going to work for you. Just make sure you have enough of what you're going to need, especially down the road. You want to keep these bees, you want to collect honey off them. Just start with 4 boxes right from the beginning, 4 deeps, okay? If you got a bad back, you got some health issues that you can't lift heavy boxes, well, I suggest you go with the medium. Here is a medium box. As you can see, it is not as deep as the 8 frame. These will be a lot lighter for you to pick up. These are 10 frame mediums. You can get 8 frame mediums. So like I said, I mean, if you know you got a bad back, you might just consider going with 8 frame mediums. Now, if you don't plan on moving your hive around, I think you should get yourself, and you have a bad back, get yourself an 8 frame deep, right? That's going to be your main brood box. You're never really going to have to lift this up if you're just going to leave it in the same place. When you do your inspections, your box stays in place. You just pull the frames out. You're going to have to take the boxes off of the top of that, okay? Now, you can use these as brood boxes also. Some people do. Some people just use mediums. They don't even use the deeps at all. Now, go ahead. I mean, if that's something you want to do, that's totally fine. I suggest getting a deep for your main box, but totally up to you what you want to do there. And then, but on your mediums, right? So if you've got a deep brood box, you're gonna want probably at least 4 mediums, right? So 1 deep brood and 4 mediums, because that 1 brood box might not be enough. You'll have to use a medium to put on top of that hive to make it, to give yourself enough room for that queen to lay, especially in the spring when she's really ramping up. That might not even be enough. You might almost need 2 mediums on top of that deep. So just keep that in mind. If you're gonna go with mediums, you're gonna have to buy more boxes. So that would give you 2 mediums, a deep and 2 mediums, possibly for brood, and that would give you 2 more mediums for honey later on. So just make sure you order yourself enough boxes. You're gonna have to have a little more when you buy mediums. On that note, you're gonna need frames, right? So depending on what you get, deeps or mediums, make sure you get the right size. Lengthwise, they'll both be the same. It's just the depth that they are. As you can see, it's a lot smaller. So these full of honey will weigh about 6 pounds. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure how many pounds this weighs, maybe 4 pounds with honey. So you can see that that weight is going to be reduced drastically when you go with a medium. So now on your frames, I suggest that you go with this plastic foundation, okay? So there's other types of foundation. Some people don't even put any foundation. So these things, these just pop in here. Let me get this out of here. So these just pop in, right? So there's a frame, there's the plastic foundation. Some people prefer to just use these, let the bees build their own comb in there, and they will do that. However, I suggest you don't do that for a couple of reasons. If you got a good foundation that's wax coated, they will build it up a little bit quicker. But where the plastic foundation really benefits you is extracting honey, okay? So when you're extracting honey and these are going into your extractor, now if you only have 1 hive, you're probably not going to have a big extractor. You're probably going to get the one maybe with 2 frames in there. And what that is, they got an axis here, and you'll put a frame here and a frame here. And when it spins, it'll be spinning like this. And when this is full of honey, it's heavy. And all that pressure starts to push. And if you don't have, even plastic foundation will sometimes, if you spin it too fast, will pop out too. But especially if you do not have any good foundation in there, a good plastic foundation, that will just blow all that honeycomb out. It'll pretty much be wasted as far as for next year, then be able to use that honeycomb, right? You can still use that wax, right? You can separate it from your honey, but now you got more straining you got to do. That's a lot more work. That's why I suggest that you go with the plastic foundation. Like I said, make sure you get it wax coated. As you can see, it's a little bit colored here. And this side, they actually started drawing it out a little bit, but you can see where that wax coating is on there. That's exactly what you want to see on the foundation you get. Do not get, it's cheaper to get it without any wax foundation, without it being waxed. But don't do that. Get it waxed, because your bees do not like it if it's not waxed, and they'll start building it all funny. And it's harder to decap it, and it's just a mess. So make sure you get the waxed foundation. That's important. And just make sure you get the right frames for the boxes you get. The deeps for deep boxes, mediums for medium boxes. Now another thing is, you got to remember 10 frame boxes need 10 of these frames, especially when it's just foundation, okay? So you need to put 10 frames of foundation in that hive, or when you get your hive, you'll put the 5 frames that you get out of the nuke, and then you'll put these 5 frames of foundation in there with it. Don't cut yourself short. When that hive starts to take off, if you don't have enough combs in there, one of the things they will do, right off the lid, they will start building honeycomb down, and that's a mess. There's ways to fix that, but it's best just not to even go there. Make sure you have enough frames in there. Another thing too, if you have 9 frames in there instead of 10, if you have any gaps in your frames, they might start building really weird in there, and so then you got another mess you got to deal with too. So that's why it's very important you have 10 frames, or if it's an 8 frame, have all 8 frames in there. What color should you get? Some people say black for your brood boxes, yellow for your honey supers. Okay, that doesn't matter at all. You can get yellow for your brood boxes, your honey supers, black for your brood boxes, honey supers. That doesn't matter. Color's not important. Like I said, what's important is that it's wax coated. Some people prefer the black for their brood boxes, and one of the reasons why, and it is very true, when you're looking for the eggs are very tiny, and when you got yellow foundation or white foundation, you're gonna have a really hard time seeing those eggs. Black foundation, you got that black background, and you can see your eggs a lot easier. So I suggest just go with the black foundation, and if it's cheaper just to buy all the black foundation, like in like bulk colonies or something, just go ahead and do that. It's not going to hurt nothing to use black foundation for your honey supers. If you get 4 boxes, 4 deep 10 frame boxes, that's 40 frames. Make sure you get enough frames. Feeders. What type of feeder should you get? Should you get an in-hive feeder like this? I think so. This is the type of feeder I think you should get. One of the reasons is if there's other bees in your area, if you're doing open feed, you'll attract other bees to your hive, and then they might start robbing your hive, especially if yours is not as strong. So that's one of the main reasons for an in-hive feeder. But also, like, you can do a bucket or a jar on top of your hive and feed them that way, and that might be just a quick, easy way for you to do if you don't want to spend the extra money. I think it's worth the money. This one has the ladder system on the side. I don't know if you can see inside of there, but that allows your bees to crawl up. You don't need to have these in. You could just do this, and this is what I suggest you do. Just get just like this. Cut yourself a little piece of wood, find some sticks to throw in there for floats. They're cheaper that way. I think they work good that way, and so get the 1 gallon. They work fine. They're pretty good right there. You put a whole gallon in your hive at a time. When your hive is doing good, if you don't have the capital ladder system, they can suck it down real quick if they need it. That's one of the nice things about not having the capital ladder. If they need that syrup, they can take it down a lot faster. You can do it inverted bucket on top, poke a few holes in the lid, and they'll be able to drink it out of there. They have some feeders that you can stick in front of your hive with just like a mason jar on top. Those work too, but those also have a tendency to bring more robbers there. I would suggest not to go with that. I think these in-hive feeders are the way to go. You need a bottom board for your hives. There's really no variables on the bottom boards for your Langstroth hives unless you go migratory. So just go ahead and order the proper one. If you're going to get 8 frame or 10 frame, make sure you get the one for that size. That's really the only thing there on the bottom boards. For your covers, okay, so covers are a little different. So they got migratory covers and they got telescoping covers. I would suggest you just go with the basic telescoping cover. So you got the cover, and then you got an inner cover inside. You're going to want to make sure you have that inner cover. Don't use a telescoping cover without an inner cover, because what happens is the bees will glue it down, and there's no way to get your hive tool in between to pry it up. You'll be tearing apart your lid just to get into your hive. So don't put a telescoping cover on without the inner cover. The inner covers, they're just a basic thing. They'll all be the same. So I suggest you just go ahead and get yourself a telescoping cover with the inner cover in there. I think that's going to be fine. That's all you're going to need for right now. That is going to be what you need for your hive. You need your bottom board. You need your hive bodies. You're going to need, on your hive bodies, you got your brood boxes and your honey supers, right? So that's why I say try to get at least 4 of the deeps, more of the mediums if you're going to go with mediums. And then your inner cover and your outer cover or your lid. That is going to be what you need for your hives, and then the frames to go inside of them. You'll be complete there. You don't have to buy yourself the feeder. I think the feeder is a good way to go. If you're trying to save a few bucks, don't worry about it. There's other ways to feed bees for real cheap. But if you got the money, go ahead and buy yourself the inner feeder. Now, what else are you going to need? You are going to need a bee suit, okay? I suggest that you at least get a jacket, the whole jacket. You might have to, oh, my bees are gentle. You don't need a whole jacket. If you get the whole jacket, you're going to feel more secure when you're working your bees. You're not going to be as nervous. You're more likely not going to make mistakes. You're going to be more apt to get into your hives. I think you should go ahead and get a full jacket. When I first got mine, it was like a shirt with the veil on it. You had to pull it over your head. Pain. Don't get that. Get the jacket, zipper in front, zips the hood. That's what you're going to want to get. I know they're a little pricier. In the long run, that's what you're going to want to do. If you are afraid of bees, but you still want to have bees, then go ahead, get the full suit and get the long gloves. If you're thinking, you know what, I'm all right with bees, I'm not afraid of them, get the jacket. I still suggest getting the jacket, and then you can just buy yourself some leather gloves, right? You don't need the gloves. I think it's good. I usually use gloves just because, especially when you're working a lot of hives, you're going to get stung, and it's just better to have the gloves on because you got a lot of stuff to do, and just plus your fingers start to get sore after a while. I prefer wearing gloves. And as far as what kind to get, I mean, usually the more money on the suit you spend, the better it's going to be. And honestly, I think some of the Datent ones are pretty nice. Just go with what is easier for you to get, more affordable, what you can afford. But like I said, try to get the full jacket if you can. A nice jacket, if you make sure it's zipped up all the way and the Velcro down, they're going to have a hard time getting in there. And most of the time they're not going to, unless you're working them late at night or late in the evening, early in the morning, or on a wet, windy day. And since you're only going to have one hive, that shouldn't be an issue. Wait for a good day to work your bees. Smokers. Datent has good smokers. I suggest you get a Datent smoker. They got the big ones, they got the shorter ones. Go ahead and just get a shorter one. They're handy. I got both and I use both. I mean, they're nice. They're nice smokers. Go ahead and get yourself a Datent. What hive tool should I get? There's the J hook one. Here's your just regular standard hive tool. Here's a one with the hook on the side, and these are very dirty, obviously used a lot. So very basic. These tools, usually get them everywhere, and honestly, they're a good hive tool. We'll get into how to use these tools, but you can't go wrong with this. This gives you the same option with the angle there, but with that hook to help you get the hives out. Get the frames out. That's also a good option. What I've been going to is just the J hook now. I don't know if I would start with one of these, though. Now that I've been using it, I do really like it. I think I need to put more of a bevel on here, though, for me to like it even more. But very good tool. But if I was going to tell you to start with, if you're just going to get one, I would say get one of these. That way you kind of have all the options, and I'll show you why I think you should get this as a starter. But I got quite a bit of hive tools. I got some really small ones. You can never have enough hive tools in your... If you think beekeeping is going to be cheap, it's not. You're going to spend a lot of money on different things. So the last two things that I think you're going to need to get before your bees arrive, you're going to need to get some pollen supplement, and some sugar. Okay, feed your bees. When you got a new hive coming in, feed your bees. Once you get established, if you want to steer away from this, you can, right? But your first hive coming on, don't be afraid to feed your bees. Once you're established, you might have some honey you can pull from other hives to give some of your weaker ones. You might have some pollen you can pull from them to give your weaker ones. You can freeze some pollen frames for later. But your first year, you're not going to have that. Don't listen to people that tell you not to use this stuff. Find some good pollen sub and find some and buy some sugar to make yourself some sugar syrup. On the sugar, Walmart and their 25-pound sacks are the best way to go. I mean, even if you got one hive, just buy one 25-pound sack of sugar. That should last you quite a while. On your pollen supplement, okay? So on your pollen supplement, there's different brands you can get. You can buy it in the patties, you can buy it in the powder form. I would suggest that you buy it in the patty form. Now, get with your beekeeper. Okay, so the beekeeper that you were buying the bees from, see if he can sell you some pollen supplement. Okay, whatever he's using is probably working for him. Go ahead and buy that and use that on your bees. You run out, you can always come to him for more. Try to get him to give or sell you a couple pounds when you first get your nuke. That's going to be very helpful for your bees. There's not a whole lot of foraging force that you have there, and especially if you have colder days or pollen flow is there's no pollen coming in, this is going to help your bees out, help sustain themselves, help them to keep on growing rather than kind of fall back a little bit. So just make sure you got some sugar and you have some pollen sub to feed your bees when you get them. The tip that I have that I think is the most important for you to know is to find somebody you can work alongside that has had bees and who has done well raising them. When I first got started, I lost a lot of hives. From one thing to another, not having enough feed in the wintertime, too many mites, viruses, a lot of reasons that I've lost hives over the years. And a lot of it could have been prevented just by working with somebody who knew what they were doing. Especially for me, like I knew I wanted to get more into commercial beekeeping, and so what I should have done is I should have worked alongside a commercial beekeeper and to learn how they were raising bees. I learned it all from YouTube, trial and error, and it's not the way you want to learn. That's a terrible way to learn. So my tip for you, find somebody who has bees, who's raised them successfully for a while, and learn from them. If the beekeeper you're buying bees from, you can ask him if you can come and watch him work or help him out. You want to learn. He might be willing to bring you along sometime and show you what he's doing. So, but go ahead, talk to your beekeeper. He might be able to work something out with you. Ask questions, but for me, one of the biggest things is watch and learn what I'm doing, right? Some people say there's no such thing as a stupid question, and I totally disagree with that statement. I can ask you 100 stupid questions and you'll just get irritated with me. so don't, that's what I tell people. A lot of times, if you actually just think it through, you will solve the problem yourself. But it's good to get that confirmation that how you solved it is correct, and that's what's going on. So that's what helps with working with a beekeeper. You can maybe call them up, text them. For like me, text messages are great. I don't have to answer a phone. I might be busy. I might be where it's noisy. I can't hear. Or when I'm out working the bees, I don't want to answer my phone. That just really frustrates me. But if I got a text message, when I'm done working the bees, I can look at my text message. Okay, that's what's going on. Yep, you're right. No, you're wrong. So you can use some of these things to your advantage. Even if you can't work directly with the beekeeper, you can use these forms of communication. Or maybe you met them on Facebook. That's where you found their ad. Communicate with them on Facebook about some of these things. But don't be afraid to reach out to them. Give them time. Don't be pushy. Some of us are really, really busy. So I have more to come on these videos of what you're going to be doing when you go pick up your hive, when you bring it back, installing it into your hive, inspection. So please stay tuned for the other videos that have to come. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you know of anybody else that wants to get into bees, please share this video with them. Hopefully it'll be helpful to them. Hopefully it was helpful to you. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you see when I get these new videos out, especially with this series that I have, getting your first hives and everything you need to do to be successful with your first bees. I hope you have a good day, and I hope to see you guys back watching my next videos. See you guys later.